Welcome to the project, everyone. Today we are back onto the Crosstrek, and we've got a plan. I'm actually pretty excited about this. Today, at least right now, we've got a little bit of a guest star. I got my son with me, so if he's grunting and groaning as he falls asleep here, do enjoy. So, as you saw in the intro, this box actually was filled, and we'll get to what's inside of this. But let's move that over there. We have a plan, and a lot of you have kind of suggested it, a lot of you have suggested it, and after doing a bit of research, it's a little interesting because no, it's not a WRX swap, no, it's not an LS, but this swap, we are doing an engine swap. I'm not just repairing and putting this in because, you know, it's a little slow. In my research, I mean, a ton of people have suggested it, a ton of people have, speculated it, and I saw one forum where a guy allegedly did it, but then he never actually got it fully going. So, the biggest piece is under this tarp. The big reveal. This is one major piece in our master plan here. So, this is an FB25. As you may recall, the Crosstrek comes with an FB20, at least in these years, before they went into fuel injection and whatnot. So the FB25 was in the Forester, the Outback, and the Legacy, and it's also the same timing chain motor. They share a ton of parts, but it's 2.5 liter, not 2 liter. So we have an entire FB25 motor right here, and the story on this motor is that they had some troubles, so they rebuilt the motor. They got the heads all nice and clean, new timing chains. They put it all back together and drove 300 miles, and then they started having water go into the oil there. So then comes to part 2 of this plan. The second piece of the puzzle is right over here. This is a short block, an FB25 short block, and I actually bought these together from the same guy. So this short block is supposed to go into that motor that has some issues. So this short block has been out of the bag, so we're gonna have to clean that pretty well, but this actually gives us a lot of advantages. If you didn't know, for Subaru motors, because of the way they are, they flex quite a bit over other motors, and so when you try to machine them and put them together and get the bearings to fit correctly, you typically have to put them into a bunch of fixtures to apply the pressure needed as if it was fully assembled to do the operations you need. And so with it like this, Subaru's already done all of that. So I don't have to worry about that as much, because that was one thing I was really worried about. So we have the short block, we have the heart of the new one. It means I can actually pull apart the old one and show you guys the main bearings, because again, I was worried about splitting that and then what I'd have to do go back to put it back together. The part number is SOA 402F100S1, and I think that should get you another short block if you want to do this. I will say, this plan makes me pretty excited. Again, it's not a WRX swap, which, I mean, that's a little unfeasible. To do a WRX swap, essentially it would be a WRX in a Crosstrek, so just the body would be Crosstrek. So I'd have to just tear out everything, all the drivetrain, all the wiring, and it's just, I mean, that's not very cost effective. And that's not really worth it, especially when a lot of WRX people are also looking for the same parts. And so WRX parts are pretty expensive. But you know, a Forester motor, a short block, these are gonna be a lot cheaper and a lot more attainable. So again, I know there's a lot of Crosstrek people out there and a lot of people who love their Crosstreks. And so if they get an opportunity, then this could be quite a valid solution. I'll try to get a good ballpark of the cost of all of this. So if you wanna do this, you kind of know what to expect for all of it. But again, I found this on the used market, and I got the other motor and this for $1,800, which is about what you could buy this for new with a core charge. Yeah, so we got a nice fancy short block. This brings us back over here. So I want to split these apart and look at what the main bearings look like. And then for the FB25, we need to pull this apart, and there's different things that I want to use on here. And there's some different things we kind of need to verify are the same between the two. But essentially, we should be able to build our own custom motor with an FB25 block, maybe these heads, and then shove it in a Crosstrek. And we will have to get tuning, but I am working on that. So there's quite a few parts I need to order, but let's at least take a look at these. Take a gander, shall we? I will say, I really need more bench space. These motors take up a lot of bench space to do. I mean, maybe it's because I've really only done dirt bike motors here and side-by-side motors, but yeah, this Subaru motor takes up a lot of bench space, so. So I assume that these are torque to yield bolts holding these two together. And so that's why, you know, they're just in there so tight. And that's why I didn't want to pull this apart unless I really didn't care about this, because it's going to be a lot of work to get this back together correctly. But one thing that, I mean, maybe this is my inexperience chiming in, but when I crack these bolts, they like, so like you hear it like it cracks and then it like breaks the seal where the bolt is and like puffs of air come out. I think I mentioned this in the last time I was pulling apart this motor. I don't know what in the world that is, if that's just because it was manufactured at like sea level and now we're up here, and so when you're finally releasing that, air is coming out, but it's definitely interesting. And also my holding method, I don't know if I would recommend if you want to keep using this block, so. But hey, it works for me. I'll put it right in here. So now you guys can hear. There's the crack. And I will say it smells terrible. I have a few more to go. So it happens when you need your engine block to split into two pieces. So before the big reveal, again, these Subaru motors, this is one of the big reasons they're a pain and they flex so much. There's these dowel pins to make sure everything's aligned and everything is like really carefully put together. So in pulling this apart, it's also a huge pain because you got to make sure they're exactly parallel, and this is my first time doing it. So I didn't notice that this back corner, you guys might have seen it, but it was like pinching up, so everything else was dropping and then binding up on that corner. So then I had to like use bolts to try to get it to like cinch up the sides so then I could drop it down. And honestly, I'm not sure if I've damaged any of these pins, but again, I don't care. I'm not using this block. So with that, let's go to the big reveal. Oh, ah! So here is, hey look, our bearing's actually stuck to, oh. Well, that's not a good sign. Look at this bearing. You guys see that? Look how bad that main bearing looks. You can even see the metal drug off on the side right there. Whew, that's bad. Our crank doesn't look too bad, honestly. It's just our bearings that look absolutely terrible. Here, we got a bearing back here, and that bearing doesn't look too bad. But of course, the one right next to the pistons that died looks absolutely terrible. There we go. Oil seal off. Yep, and sure enough, the other side of that bearing, thing's done. So I don't know if it was the rod or the main bearings, the crank. Honestly, I'm not sure. So this is interesting. These ones look like not as much load bearing, and then these outside ones look like they are a lot more load bearing. So yeah, sure enough, this guy right here, so this is just me theorizing, but because this bearing is bad and these other ones don't look so bad, I'm pretty sure that this bearing feeds the other two pistons, the two that also were really bad. So I bet you, yeah, probably low oil pressure, or yeah, to that effect. So I don't know if I want to use my oil pump, but low oil pressure probably made these fall apart. And I think maybe this guy started falling apart first and caused the other two next to it to just start dying. Because again, I think this feeds that, and this one feeds the two in the middle. Which would make sense that the middle failed is because, you know, and this is again, all just me hypothesizing, but if this feeds one and this feeds the other, this has to feed two rather than just one, and so this would be the most likely to fail, which is the one that did fail. And the other side of the crank is gonna or crankcase is gonna look exactly the same. So yeah, bottom end bearings, pretty much all toast. But hey, we got it apart. Give you guys a nice close up on this. I mean, all things considered, I don't think this block is like not rebuildable. Like it's savable if someone wanted to go in and put in new bearings and probably get someone really qualified to put it all together. Though this is interesting. Do you guys see this gap right here? That it looks like it like overheated and like shrunk a little bit because it's supposed to fit nice and tight like these other ones. See, all of these are like really tight in here. I guess that has a little gap on the keyway, but not quite like this guy. Like, look at that. That is huge gap. So I don't think this necessarily spun. Well, maybe it spun. Because underneath, I mean, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it spun. I feel like I'd see a lot bigger grooves if it spun, but it's definitely shrunk enough that it could have. And there's a little bit of, I don't know, like a mark or something down there. But there's also the same mark on this, so that might just be, yeah, they probably didn't spin, but they definitely died. So there you go. There's the crank case pulled in half, so you can see the two parts. And if you're gonna rebuild a motor, probably wanna do it a bit more careful than what I was doing. But hey, here we go. All right, I couldn't help it but show you the other side. Same thing, look, this bearing, it like shrunk or something. And you know, after looking at this, yeah, maybe it spun. I don't think we'd be getting those marks if it didn't spin. But all the other bearings look pretty dang good. I will say on the crank over here, carefully, oh, what is that? So right here on the crank, this surface definitely has a bit more scratching than like over here kind of a thing. Hopefully that shows up on camera. There's no like grooves or anything, so you might be able to get away with like a polish on this and then, you know, put it back in. But I'm not a machine shop, so I usually take that stuff to someone who knows a lot better than me. But we're not even using this crank, so doesn't matter. We got another night in the shop. We got a few hours, so we got the furnace going, so hopefully it'll warm up in here. It's still a little bit chilly, but the next step to do is actually tear apart this FB25. So again, I was told, well, the first story was that this motor had some bottom end damage, kind of a thing. But then when I went to talk to him, he actually said, no, it was actually coolant leaking into the oil, so they probably did the head gaskets wrong or something to that effect. So we need to get this torn down because there are pieces in here that I want to use, and there are some differences. So now that I have this here and we can actually look at it, I can, yeah, I can actually measure things. So that's the main thing I want to do, because I need to know if we can use these heads or if I need to use my heads. Because if these heads are good, then they have low miles on it, and they should be pretty good for what we want. Plus I need to see if there's any differences. So I'll probably time-lapse most of it, but I will stop to make anything of note. One of the biggest differences that you can maybe see already is that right here, you notice we have variable timing on the intakes, but on the exhaust, we don't have variable timing. And then over here on the FB20, we have variable timing on both. So that means when I'm using my valve cover or my timing chain cover, I'm gonna have actuators for both of them, and my ECU is set up for that. And so we do need to swap these. And I think this is one of the biggest differences here is the needing the variable timing on the exhaust. It's on both sides because there's none on this. Also, whoever put this together got some lovely goop on that guy. And one of the other things of note, as I was just looking at this, down in here, you see that? See how that says, what is that, AP25? Well, when I look at my motor, it says AP20. So already right there in the castings, I think this is down in there. On the castings for the heads, they are labeled different, AP20, AP25. So we'll have to see if there are differences. But the tumble valves, they are a lot cleaner than mine, but there's still stuff we need to tear apart on this. I did notice they broke that connector. I think this is the EGR, exhaust gas recirculation. The EGR solenoid has that broken. And we need to drain the oil. Looks like the water pump's taken off on this side, and it's just kind of grimy. Like I wish, I mean, this goes without saying, but everything that we do to this motor, we're gonna have to clean really well before we use it on ours. One other thing of note, got a broken gasket for our valve cover, but that's fine. I mean, I'm probably gonna order new of all of that. But anyways, we do need to get off this stuff and just start tearing it down. Oh, that is one thing I'll note. So in the manual, and this is maybe going into the weeds a little bit too much, but in the manual, it makes mention to not rotate this counterclockwise, and it might be because of the timing on it, but I looked through it again and I couldn't see anything there. I did notice it was like when we take the heads off, they're very specific on how much you rotate it so that way you get the pistons into the middle of the block, because this side, when you take off the chain, I think it's the exhaust will be open, and this is an interference engine, and so if you rotate it the wrong direction, the wrong amount of degrees, then your piston is going to hit the exhaust valves on this side because they're open when you take the chain off. So that's where they're saying only do clockwise to this specific point. So I'm not sure still why my other motor was kind of binding up, but I will say this one, when we rotate it clockwise, like the manual says, I think is fine. You see, we don't get any interference at all, which is good. And it means we can come in here and actually line up our timing marks, right? And they say you can go counterclockwise a little bit if you need to line them up. But you see we got the mark there, mark there. Anyway, so yeah, this one doesn't bind up like mine was. And you know, honestly, maybe I was being an idiot, like you guys have mentioned. I'm not an expert, but I'm doing my best. So we just need to start the time lapses, start tearing into this, and see what's inside, see what we can find. Let's get to it. Okay, so we got the chains off, and one thing to note is I can check on this side, but yeah, all the cams, I can wiggle them a little bit because they're not pushing the valves down. And a few things to note, all the timing chain stuff, like all the guides and the tensioners, they were like hand tight in there, barely. They were like just threaded in a little bit. So that makes me a little suspect of like the timing chain stuff. I might ask the guy I bought this from if he knows what that's about, because it almost seems like maybe someone took it all off and then put it back on just for show. Because hopefully they didn't this isn't like a super old timing chain. He told me it was a new timing chain, but I'm not sure. So I need to ask him about that. Also, all of our rockers for our exhaust valves, gone. They're not there. So that's a little interesting too. But hey, timing chains are off, all the valves are closed. It's an interference engine, so we don't want to hit any of that. So the valves are closed. We can start taking off the cam carriers and the heads and see what the inside of this looks like. I can already say that these intake runners, yeah, they're used, like there's a little bit of pitting and stuff, but I'm pretty sure they're dang clean. They're really clean. So I might see a little bit of gasket material down there, but anyways, so the heads so far look pretty dang good, but we won't know until we start tearing into it. So time to get the cam carriers off. Alright, well there was like no oil in there really. Now it's time to start taking the heads apart. I just heard something fall a little bit. That's not good. Oh, it's one of the rollers. Aha, one of the rollers. So if we just pulled off the head gasket here, and I was looking at it, and I kid you not, look at that. Pinched in the head gasket, looks like a shop towel. Like, look at that. That's literally a piece of shop towel stuck between the head gasket in the block. So yeah, only lasted 300 miles before it started leaking coolant. I mean, there you go right there. Like, come on. And I don't think we have any valve contact, but looking on this, it looks like not a professional decking job. I can see the scratches of them just trying to sand it down. So they didn't take it to a machine shop to get it done, which is a little bit of a shame. I don't know if there's going to be a real obvious spot to see where it leaks into the oil, and maybe it's on the other side, but that sure is interesting. All right, on to the other side. So last thing, we got the heads off, and sure enough, looking at the other side, it looks like right here we've got some valve contact. Mainly, there's a little ridge. So I don't know how well this is going to come up on camera, but there's a ridge right there, and it looks like some metal there. So I don't know if these heads are the ones that contacted. My guess is yeah. Now we need to go check our heads. And back here also, it looks like a little bit of contact there and a little bit of contact there. Definitely more contact on that side. I don't know, maybe they put the pistons in wrong. Doesn't quite look like it. But I guess I can check on the short block. But yeah, looks like we got some valve contact on this side, which sucks. I was really hoping to use those heads without having to do any work on them. I don't know how likely that's looking. Because, yeah, that's not good. Not good at all. One other thing is it looks like maybe the oil ring wasn't scraping that well, or maybe the bore on this is not super perpendicular, because I do see some interesting markings on this cylinder. And at the top here, it just, I don't know, doesn't look the best. But hey, this block is now torn down. I don't think I'm going to tear it down any more than this. Don't really need to. That sucks for the valves though. After looking at the pistons over there, I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep unless I looked at the heads, and guys, it's not good. It's not good at all. So let's take this. Oh, do you guys see what I see? How about this angle? Look at that. Bent valve, bent valve, bent valve, bent valve. Maybe not a bent valve, bent valve, bent valve, bent valve. Ugh, and this is the side that one's bent too. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of these are bent. And this is the side that we looked, and there was pretty obvious piston contact there. And if we go to this other side, to the passenger side, and tip it over, yeah, it's not looking much better. Bent, 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 maybe bent, maybe bent. So out of this whole motor, we have maybe 2 unbent valves. So yeah, I don't think coolant into the oil is why this motor suddenly didn't want to work anymore. I'm pretty sure it's I mean, how many valves is that? Yeah, almost 30 bent valves. Jeez. Jeez, guys. I mean, yeah. But hey, I mean, okay, hear me out. Here's the silver lining is that, again, it's for the price of a short block from Subaru. Yes, it has a warranty. We got one without a warranty and got to see all these parts. So now we have physical parts that we can measure, that we can verify. We can see, are these heads the same as the FB20? I don't know. We'll have to measure it. Not tonight, but that's, yeah, this motor died in a completely different, spectacular way. I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, a lot of the timing chain stuff was loose. I need to not speculate. I'll have to think it over. Let me sleep on it, but I think we're calling it a night here. Well guys, I think that'll do it for this video. We kind of need to end it here so that way we can get out to you on time. This FB25 definitely held a few secrets, a few surprises along the way. After sleeping on it a little bit, my best guess is they drove it for 300 miles. Yes, coolant started to get into the oil. They just tried to do a quick and dirty pull off the heads, maybe put on new head gaskets and see if that fixed it. Maybe they even tried to sand the heads a little bit and try to fix it that way. The timing chains on the outside, like the cams, that looked good. So I think they might have timed it wrong on the crank. And so then first startup, boom, they bent all the valves because they did it wrong. Which, I mean, that's just crazy. I've never seen that. We'll get you one last good shot of the valves because I didn't give you the best shot last night. So, here. So here's the left-hand head. As you can see, like that guy is lifted up so much. If you come over here, you can even see past it. And then also the valve itself is flat. It's supposed to be a little bit canted at an angle, kind of like that. But if you look down here, like that guy is so flat. And same over here. I mean, those just, yeah, they really did a number on these guys. Bent valves, more bent valves. That guy right there, he's really flat. And then over here, no bent valves, but a lot of carbon buildup. Our AP20 heads, AP25. Yeah. Good times, good times. I'm really glad you guys came on the project. I have ordered some tools and ordered some parts. I mean, I gotta complete this project. It's not just gonna hang in the air. So hopefully you guys stick around. Hopefully subscribe if you wanna see future updates and come along on this fun project adventure. But I think that'll do it for today. If you guys wanna make any comments or suggestions, put them down below. We do read them. Some of you guys are pretty brutal, I will be honest. But we love having you here and love having you come along on this. Any relevant tools or items, I typically put links down in the description if you want to see there. And if you do want fun little stickers, we did make a sticker. So that's also linked down there if you want to put an adventurous sticker on your car. And yeah, that'll do it. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. And I hope to see you guys on the next project. So we'll see ya. Bye.